Welcome back to another episode of the Goonery. Ben and Brandon here. As always, we're here celebrating a national champion, Brandon Cauley.
Y'all see it? Do y'all see it? If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you probably can't see it, but I'm donning a Michigan National Championship T-shirt in the year of 2024. Crazy to say that. Because hey, listen, because I'm 26 years old. If you lived around the same time frame as I did with the Michigan Wolverines, you saw Rich Rodriguez. And you saw Stephen 3, and I forgot the other guy,
Brady Hoke,
as the quarterback. You all get to him. We saw them two at quarterback. Then we went through the Tate Forciers, and then Denard Robinson happened, and that's where Brady Hoke came in. And we had no idea. I guess at the time, I think we thought as Michigan fans anything was going to be better than Rich Rodriguez. I think we were 10-2 that year with a Sugar Bowl win, and then it went downhill very, very fast. And then, I mean, the 2013, 2014 years, I mean, if you were there for that, you was in the trenches. Point blank, you was in the trenches. And Jim Harbaugh came in. And granted, I want to put myself out on Front Street and say there was a point in time where I wanted Jim Harbaugh to be fired. That was around, I would say, 2017, 2018. And it felt like the program was just going backwards. And it just seemed like there was just nothing that was going to ascend because literally Jim Harbaugh was brought to Michigan to win a national championship. Nothing more, nothing less. Mm-hmm. And it not only did he not get close, he didn't win one for all the years he's been here. He didn't even get close. Granted, maybe we can talk about 2016 and how JT Barrett was short. Hey, he still fell short. And then everything else after the fact was a disaster. But you just knew this year, like I said, the last episode we recorded, things were different. Things were just different. The fact of the matter is, we saw Michigan get close so many times in the past 2 years, and only for them to do the Michigan thing, as most Michigan fans would say. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But again, this year felt different. Everything about this year felt different. JJ was going to improve. Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards were going to be the best tandem in the nation. And the defense, which, by the way, did not allow a team to go over 25 points. Not one opponent went over 25 points. Crazy to think about in a college football scene where everybody's scoring points, except for Iowa. But everybody's scoring points. So when you think about that, and you think about everything that happened in the season, from sign stealing and coaches getting suspended over a hamburger, I mean, this season is literally the most just satisfying thing that any Michigan fan could possibly hope for, especially for everything we have been through. And I can say for me personally, myself, there was no season, there's no team that resonated with me more than this Michigan Wolverine team. Not one. I've seen the Cardinals win the World Series. I've seen the Lakers win a finals. I have not seen the Bears win a championship. That'll probably happen after I'm dead. But and even like maybe the Red Wings, who I supported in hockey, I've seen them win a championship. I've seen them win 2. I've never seen Michigan even get close in my lifetime. And just the fact that they did, I was shedding tears on Monday. I was jumping up and down. I felt like a damn kid again. And that's what sports is supposed to make you feel. And this team made me feel every single emotion this season. And for that, I love that team. And I will be forever grateful that I was here to watch every single game of that football team that capped it off with exactly what they said they wanted to come back for, and that was a national championship.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's going to be a very, very different looking Michigan Wolverines team next year based on how these last few days have shaken up. But something tells me you and the rest of Michigan fans do not give a shit about that, because Harbaugh said he was going to come to Michigan. He was going to win a national championship. Well, guess what? He delivered. Not many people deliver on a promise like that, and he did it. It may have taken longer than some people would have liked.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, promises made, promises delivered.
Yep. And that's one of the things, because I said last season that if Jim Harbaugh is going to play the game of I might go to the NFL, I might not, I said he can go, like point blank, and I would have been okay with it because as a Michigan fan, you take what you can get at that point, because bigger than the college football playoff for 2 seasons in a row, you beat Ohio State 2 seasons in a row. You're like, okay, like I think I'm okay with him moving on, but then again, I don't think that was very genuine of me, because what I really wanted was a national championship. And I knew that, because I said it going into the season, this was Michigan's best opportunity to win a national championship. And they delivered on that. So thank God he stayed another year. And I know, as Michigan fans, I want Jim Harbaugh back in Michigan. If he can stay in Michigan for the rest of his life, I'm okay with that. But I think also too, we know how the game of college football works. Nobody stays anywhere. It goes for the coaches and it goes for the players too. But
especially in the year 2024.
Exactly. So the fact is that I am very, very okay with him moving forward to the NFL. If we got to struggle for some years to get back on our feet, sure. Granted, I would like to think that we will go out there and get a better coach, but considering Warren Manuel wouldn't even pay Jim Harbaugh, who the hell is he going to pay top dollar? So we might have to struggle for a couple of years, and that's okay. But I'm going to savor this. I'm going to be insufferable. I'm going to talk my shit for the next 7 months, because I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot of people talking. The teams that reside in East Lansing and Columbus, those particular fan bases. I'm going to luxuriate in this particular offseason because, listen, I don't know when the next one's going to be here, but I know it just recently happened. I know we have the most recent national championship between us and Ohio State, and Michigan State. When the last time they even won a championship? So, yeah, it's going to be a very, very insufferable offseason for those Big Ten teams. Even if you're coming in, you've been here for a long time, I'm going to be very, very insufferable.
And I don't blame you. I don't blame you in the slightest. And something tells me that I won't get to be insufferable with either team I'm wearing right now at any point in the near future. Maybe basketball, but I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you, Brandon, and I'm glad you get to enjoy this. And I'm glad that you seem to be in the headspace that you're okay with Harbaugh moving on and you've come to terms with it, because, in my opinion, it's now or never for him if he's going to make the jump to the NFL again. And his value is never going to be higher.
Yeah.
It may suck that Michigan's going to be missing out on some potential candidates because of that, because a name we talked about on this show a few weeks ago as a potential replacement is now the heir apparent to Nick Saban down in Alabama. And boy, oh boy, I'm saying my prayers for him, because he is going to be eaten alive down there.
Dude, I tell you,
they're going to win. There's no doubt in my mind about that, but it's just not a cultural fit, I don't think.
And that's the operative thing, because what we talked about was who will go be the most suitable candidates, because we talked about this through text. Who's going to be the most suitable candidates? And Lane Kiffin was the name that immediately jumped to mind. But I guess this is one of those hires we strike when the iron is hot. But I think what's really going to be the detriment to Kalen DeBoer is the fact that there are so many players transferring. And here's the thing. Kalen has had success everywhere he's gone. He was the architect. It was a South Dakota or North Dakota State?
I believe South Dakota.
South Dakota. If you paid attention just a little bit to, I think it's the Division III football or Division II, whichever one it is, I'm losing it, but he was the architect behind those teams. They were dominant. Mm-hmm. So he knows how to coach the game of football. He knows how to coach offense as well. But one of those important things is, how was the defense going to be? And granted, Washington's defense didn't play particularly bad against Michigan. They didn't. So one thing that I am going to be focusing on with Alabama is their defense. I have no doubt their offense is going to be good. Hell, I'll go out and say it right now. Jalen Milroe might be in the Heisman conversation next season because of Caleb DeBoer. Defense is really where I'm worried for them.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of coordinator woes and worries, the headache has begun, Brandon, with our Bears.
Oh, boy.
And I just, not a single name has come out for defensive coordinator for interviews yet, which I have found I found that more interesting, I think, than any of the names that have been interviewed for the offensive coordinator position.
I see. This just screams to me they're gonna promote with him, and honestly, that's probably the most feasible because the scheme that Matt Eberflus runs, let's be honest, it is so outdated that who in the world, as a young dude, is going to come in and say, "Hey," Eberflus is going to say, "Hey, we're going to run a Tampa 2 in 2024." Defensive coordinators be like, "Dude, don't block my number."
Are we
So
gonna?
I think that
Speaking of it, a Lovey reunion.
I mean, it's probably the most feasible hire he can make in terms of a defensive coordinator. But hey, one thing that Ryan Poles, which by the way, after this coordinator conversation, we need to have a talk about Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus, but we're gonna get to that. But one thing that Poles did point out with Eberflus was his adaptability, which, granted, on a defensive end, he did find ways to adapt because when we were screaming at the top of our lungs, dude, why are you playing zone every single snap? Why, with the guys and the athletes that you have on defense, why are you running zone so much? And then you start seeing more blitzes, you start seeing more man-to-man coverages. And shockingly, the Bears defense got better. So sure, adaptability is one thing, but you would want another voice in that room. I know Phil Snow's probably going to be the guy who's going to be promoted to defensive coordinator, which I'm completely okay with because he was the architect.
I'm all the way on board with that. All the way on board with that.
Right. But and I'm okay with that. Now on the offensive coordinator side, because listen, I don't know how much you've been on Twitter since the season has ended, but everything has been insufferable. Every single part has been insufferable.
Brandon, for that reason, I have barely been on Twitter. It just I can't do it. It doesn't matter. I mean, just every single one of my teams I cheer for right now, except for Illinois basketball, has been a dumpster fire, and Illinois basketball may still be the most insufferable due to the ongoing investigation with Terrence Shannon Jr. And I go on Twitter for information I want to see. You follow who you want to follow, and it doesn't matter. Everyone's insufferable, and it's become a headache. It's become a headache. But with that being said, I still do check it a few times a day, and I do see it. There's a name on the offensive side of the football today that is supposedly going to be interviewing for the coordinator position, and I don't know if I've ever seen as 50-50 of a split as I have on someone on Twitter.
Yes.
In Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Cliff Kingsbury is a bad offensive mind. He's not. Let's not get it twisted. He is good at what he does, but he's also very consistent in what he does. He will always come out of the gates hot, regardless of where he is at, and just sputter out and slowly but surely fall off a cliff. And something also I want to note, Caleb Williams' worst season ever is his 1 year with Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah.
And I know that USC had a lot of problems this year, and I don't want to blame them on Cliff Kingsbury. But at the end of the day, I don't know if I see this interview as anything other than another way to scout Caleb Williams earlier in the process.
Bingo. That's it. And here's the thing. I'm split on this too. Don't get me wrong, because on one hand, like you said, what you said about Cliff Kingsbury, spot on. The consistency is consistent in what he does in terms of starting off high and ending up cold. You want to know why that scares me? Because literally we just fired a guy who was simply like that. He was that guy. So no, absolutely not. But on the flip side, if you are going to draft Caleb Williams, one thing you did say was that this was Caleb Williams' worst year, but his worst year was still a really good year.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, I mean, no. I am not going to stand here and say that Caleb Williams is not I would argue maybe a generational prospect.
Yeah, I would say that.
But it's still you look at the one game against a quality defense this year too. Can't believe I'm giving him credit, but his Notre Dame, 3 interceptions. It raises the red flags, but that's a different conversation. Back to King.
Yeah.
I personally, offensive coordinator, I'm out on him. I'm out on him. Man, if they could bring him in as a quarterbacks coach, though, and if they do decide to draft Caleb Williams, I think I'm all in on that decision.
Yeah. And two things about this process that I actually really do like is due diligence.
No,
remember,
bingo. 59
remember,
hours. 59 hours is all it took Eberflus to hire Luke Getsy.
And do you remember how many candidates were interviewed?
Not many.
It was two. It was two. Luke Getsy and Pep Hamilton were the two guys. Which, by the way, Pep Hamilton had way more success as an offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, quality control. He had way more success. We went Luke Getsy. Another discussion for another day, though. But the due diligence is what I do like. And let's be honest, a lot of these guys, because Bears fans are just unhinged at this point. So they're going to react to every single guy that gets interviewed, which, if you really think about it, I think they're using this as a tactic to gain as much intel to what they can install to whatever offensive coordinator that they're going to commit to, point blank. So when you think about that, you also think about how many guys they are interviewing, and you say, damn, what is the possibility that they can get an offensive coordinator and a quarterbacks coach out of this? Because you would think that all these guys that's being interviewed, they're different. You want to know what they all have in common? They all come from the same tree. So they all have continuity with working one another. So that to me, I can't believe I'm saying this because I feel like I shouldn't give the Bears any credit for anything that they do, but I am going to give them credit because they're setting themselves up so greatly for a staff that, if indeed that they do not succeed, I don't know whose fault is it going to be other than the head coaches. It may not be the process, but it might be the head coach's fault. But they did their job in trying to get this offense rolling, and thank God.
No, you're not wrong. Some of the names are intriguing. Some are just flat out dumb to me. If I'm being honest on who I've seen.
Greg Roman is the dumbest one. Let's put a call like it is.
The words right out of my mouth, Brandon. You know, you completed my sentence for me. So I just pray to the fucking Lord above that we do not hire Greg Roman, man. That
highly unlikely. Highly. I'm not even giving it thought. Even though it's the Bears, I should not put anything past them, but I'm confident that he will not get the job.
So at this point in time, do you have a prediction as to who you think the coordinator will end up being? I know we still don't know a ton, and it's still, other than the names that are being interviewed, still been relatively hush hush. Do you have a prediction?
Oof, part of me really wants to pick the most popular candidate just off the urgency in which they interviewed him. But I want to see Waldron so bad because of the urgency in which they decided to interview him.
Mm.
But to be honest, I think Clint Kubiak is going to be the guy. I actually do, and I think one thing is very very clear. They believe in the scheme. They just didn't believe who was running the scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a guy that is working directly with one of the best offensive schemes and how they operate, hey, listen, I think that's what you want. And yeah, I think that's he's among one of the top candidates for sure. But one name that honestly I've been doing a lot of research today, and I gotta be honest, I like this dude a lot. And if you are my age, you remember he was playing college football at Oklahoma State. Zach Robinson is going to be a guy going forward. He's going to get a lot of interviews, and all I heard was glowing things about him. So
Mm-hmm.
if I think McVay is going to have to prepare to lose him because he's going to be a very very hot commodity. So those are my 1 and 2. I think Waldron he speaks for itself. He speaks for itself. That's the number 1 candidate for me. But do I think he's going to? Do I think the Bears going to do the right thing and hire him? Probably not. But they do have good options though.
I'm with you on the Kubiak thing. I think it would just schematically, I think it would be a very good fit.
Yeah.
I think that it's a fit. You saw what he was able to do with someone much less talented than Justin Fields and potentially Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Make a splash. Go after someone young and hot. I mean, like let's just go after the hot name one time.
I do want to warn you because there's going to be an interview coming up that's going to make Bears fans melt. Be prepared for them to just talk to Frank Reich. Be prepared. Be prepared.
Brandon, I am prepared. I hope you know.
Yeah. If they interview Marcus Brady, who was on that coach staff that Eberflus was on, Frank Reich is going to get a call.
Yep. No, you're right. You are correct. And I can't believe even Marcus Brady. I can't believe he's getting an interview either. But
you want to know why? He's probably going to be the quarterback's coach for whomever.
You're not wrong. Yeah, no, that's a fair assumption. But talking more so the fun stuff that's happened the last few days. Well, I don't know if you can even say Super Wild Card Weekend was fun with how poor the product was. But
yeah,
there was some shockers. a few shock. I would say one real shocker. Because a few weeks ago, we talked about on this show that the Buccaneers are maybe a team that you're not going to want to play in the playoffs. And they just got it was a perfect storm with them having the hot hand and playing the coldest team in football. And there's going to be some serious changes in Philadelphia, I bet. But the real one we have to talk about. Jordan Love is really going to ruin our lives again for the next decade, isn't he?
Let me ask you a question. Did you find yourself getting actually mad at watching the game because it just felt like every big throw he needed, he just completed
he made it.
While his feet were in the air. His mechanics are so bad. His footwork sucks. But he found everybody. He was finding everybody.
Yep.
And I'm just like, what the hell is going on? Is this guy actually another iteration of Aaron Rodgers? And
there's hell feels like it at this point.
I'm just like, Lord, why? What do the Packers like? The Packers. What is it about them that the Lord that they love that? Why does the Lord love the Packers so much? I just don't.
They call Wisconsin and all the farms, they call it God's country, right? And it seems that luck is just rubbed off into Green Bay, the armpit of that state. and it's just
it's sad, but I don't want to keep talking about what we already know about Green Bay. Green Bay is going to be very dangerous going forward. Just off that offense and how young they are, and they have the young ascending quarterback, they're going to be dangerous. But what the hell, Cowboys? What the hell?
and what the
That
hell, Jerry Jones, someone who I know he's loyal, and he was loyal too long to Jason Garrett. You thought he just may learn from his mistakes.
yeah,
Mike McCarthy, how does he have a job? How is he not fired?
Jerry Jones. I don't want to make this horrible comment, but you said it yourself. You do not have much longer on this earth. You said it, I didn't say it. In knowing that, you're going to keep a guy that, by the way, the last time he actually won a Super Bowl or been to a Super Bowl, Obama was in office. 2010. So you're going with a guy that notoriously cannot get the job done in the playoffs. But not only that, because with Green Bay, regardless if he had Aaron Rodgers, he was making NFC Championship games. You can't even get past the divisional round. And it was even a shocker for you to get past Tom Brady last season and get to the divisional round. And then when you got to the divisional round, they played awful football. And then just this game, let me tell you something. I don't think people are talking about this as much as they should, but they knew that a matchup with San Francisco was probably going to loom. And he looked past Green Bay because that did not look like a team that thought they was going to be in for a fight.
Nope.
And blame Micah Parsons for ingraining that into their heads because everything was about San Francisco after they got the doors blown off them in San Francisco. He made it all about San Francisco. And what happened? You forgot that Green Bay was probably the hottest team in football going into the damn playoffs. And look what happened. I mean, that genuinely. I've seen some really disappointing playoff performances from top-ranked teams. Because I think the Cowboys were 9-point favorites in the game?
9.5-point favorites. Yep.
I have never, not never, but in a while, I have not been so disappointed about one team in a playoff game. And I'm not saying that just to be the typical Green Bay hater I am. Cowboys should have won that game, and everybody probably thought the same thing. That was actually sad. So it was pathetic. It was genuinely pathetic. How do you keep a coach at the game like that?
And you said everyone thought the Cowboys should have won that game. Following that, everyone on that coaching staff should be out of a job as well. Mike McCarthy should never coach in the NFL again. Ever.
They're gonna learn the hard way. They're gonna learn the hard way. And if there was ever a year, and I would make this point about the Bears too. If there was ever a year you were gonna fire a head coach, you see the coaches that's out in the pool right now, and you telling me that some of those guys can't do a better job than Mike McCarthy, who hasn't been to a Super Bowl since 2010? I mean, what are we doing here? Cowboys fans are so damn loyal; they will always pour money into that organization, always, no matter what. But stuff like this is like, damn, I should reconsider because clearly the guy who so badly talks about winning, and he was lost for words after the game, he doesn't want to take steps further to get a championship product out there. And guess what? Now, every single time that the Cowboys lose, because it's going to happen the next year, and the next year, and the next year. And you know what will be the main culprit about that? It won't be Mike McCarthy. He'll be one of the biggest parts. But Jerry Jones has to be the main culprit at this point. He's his own worst enemy.
Yeah, and I'll say this. If somehow, some way, I don't think he goes anywhere, the Cowboys decide to move on from Dak Prescott instead of Mike McCarthy, I deserve every poor, wrong thing that happens to them and then some.
Here's the thing with that, because
And that's
it's always a discussion with, oh, let's move on from a quarterback. But have y'all seen quarterback play this year? Have y'all seen how rookies come in and play? Do y'all realize that good quarterbacks, not great, but good quarterbacks don't grow on trees. They just don't. It takes time. And I understand Dak Prescott is who he is. He is as mid as it gets. I completely understand it. If you're going to trade him, if you're going to release him, sure, do that. Who are you getting to replace him is my question.
Mm-hmm.
He's the best you're going to get. He's not, and I understand you don't want to hear that because I get it. I completely understand it. But that's not the guy you want to target. It's not.
Yep.
Breaking news, by the way, Bill O'Brien is the new offensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
I don't hate that. I mean, obviously, I don't like Ohio State, but I don't think that's a horrible hire.
Not a horrible hire, but that doesn't move me at all.
No. And I'll tell you what, I'm sure you're going to be happy when Ryan Day is eventually moving on from Ohio State and Bill O'Brien takes over.
Well, what if I don't want Ryan Day to move on? What if I want to keep stomping his teeth there?
You're not wrong, Brandon. You're not wrong.
But one thing we also have to talk about too. Philadelphia.
Fire everyone.
The hell?
Fire everyone.
I mean, it is. We're gonna get that article. Remember that article that I forgot what year it was, but we got that article about Carson Wentz being a diva, and it just took everybody by surprise until we kind of found out the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
I am in no way saying Jalen Hurts is a diva, but it's very clear to me. But he does not have the pulse of that team.
Yeah,
and it's so bad.
I don't think he's a diva. He's just a weirdo, man.
He's just not a guy that you just say, yeah, I want to play for him. He motivates me. And when you pair him with a complete just how do I say this without being extremely rude? Just an absolute douchebag of a coach. It doesn't mix. It doesn't mix. It was proof of what happened in Tampa. That was a team that was just completely checked out. They didn't want to be out there. They wanted the season to end because they probably maybe wanted to see if Sirianni was going to go, which, by the way, they might be disappointed that he's not. But if you ask me, there is no good end in sight if you keep him. When a team is checked out like that, and this goes for all franchises. Eagles is the prime example of this. When you see a team that's checked out like that, you look at the head coach first. Point blank. And also, offensive coordinator, he obviously he wasn't good. He was not good. But when you make a change in the middle of the season for a defensive coordinator, which, by the way, Sean Desai wasn't doing an awful job, but you traded in a bad coordinator for an even worse one, which, by the way, this guy was bouncing around from team to team because he couldn't stick anywhere because he was so bad.
Yep.
What are you doing?
I think I'd be more angry if I was an Eagles fan than I am as a Bears fan. And I don't think that that's a crazy thing to say.
Not at all. This team was slated to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
People thought he was going to make it back. But one thing that this Eagles team has taught me, and it should teach everybody this, whenever you say a team will be back, don't ever be so sure about that. Do you know how hard it is to make it back? Just saying.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap this week's episode of Goonery. A quick one this week, but next week we're going to be back. Very in-depth Royal Rumble preview.
Oh, yeah.
we're going to do a big deep dive on the rest of the playoffs as well. But with that being said, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the show, and we will see you next week.